Hi, folks. This is Louis Martin, module leader for LAWS 62018, serial killer module. So this is a 15 credit module that's taught over semester one. The assessment then it's an examination, but it's an examination where you're going to have to answer questions on topics around serial murder, psychopathy, and sort of nature versus nurture theories for why people commit serial murder. Last year, the feedback on this module was excellent, and students absolutely loved it. They not only did they do really well in the exam, but they also did really well on the presentation. So you're required to choose a British serial killer, and you're required to do a presentation to the rest of the cohort in groups, your workshop, on a killer of your choice. So in this module then, it's important to remember that we're only looking at British serial killers, of which we have a lot. The difference between Britain and the US is that we don't advertise our serial killers. There are serial killers that have operated in the UK that would shock you, that you probably never even heard of, because we keep them quiet. So don't worry too much about that. Everything that's happened in the US, we've got a similar version of the killer here. So the set book for this module is this book that you need to purchase. This is called Serial Killers and the Phenomenon of Serial Murder, a student textbook by David Wilson, Elizabeth Yardley, and Adam Lines. So this is the set book. It's a small textbook. It's not overly cumbersome, and that's the set reading book you need. We'll be drawing from this book. If you want to do any supplementary reading, then there's a book by David Wilson who charts the history of serial killing in Britain. I think it's something like Hunting, or the history of British serial killers, or Hunting the British serial killers. So you can have a look. You can read that. That'll help. I personally am reading this book here that I refer to. You don't have to buy this book, although it's quite cheap on Amazon. This is one of the books that we're going to be looking at and using during the sessions, and this is The Anatomy of Violence, The Biological Roots of Crime by Dr. Adrian Raine. I find this book fascinating because in the past, I haven't been skeptical about the medical models, or I haven't really looked into medical models for the causes of violence and psychopathy. But I'm listening to some lectures from Britain's top psychiatrist, forensic psychiatrist, Dr. Gwen Adshead. She recommended this reading because this really does get into the biological causes of violence. And I've gone into this in some detail this semester, where there is a lot of overwhelming evidence now that the actual physiological structure of the brain and defects within the brain, or areas of the brain that haven't developed properly or have been damaged in the womb, have made the doctors have made significant impacts into looking at this. And I've been reading this and looking at some of the journal articles of how they're correlating sort of damage to areas of the brain to violence and impulsiveness. So that's something we're going to look at. Like I say then, you will need to think about a particular serial killer of your choice. I will put some names up on Blackboard for some of those of you who haven't really come across many British serial killers. During the lectures, I'll be mentioning several. If you would want to start off by looking at killers such as Stephen Griffiths, known as the Crossbow Cannibal, Stephen Port, some of the more contemporary killers, Steve Wright, the Suffolk Strangler, especially the study of Stephen Griffiths, we're going to sort of invite you to speak about Griffiths, because he is almost he's a modern serial killer that wanted to be a serial killer. He was a PhD student from Bradford University who set about to gain notoriety by becoming a serial killer, and added elements such as cannibalism and this use of a crossbow, and was filmed on CCTV in the flat complex, luring a sex worker back to his flat. And then he came out on with a crossbow and was gesticulating up at the camera. So he knew he was going to get arrested, and he was putting a show on. And when he was charged and went to magistrate's court, he introduced himself as the crossbow cannibal. So there are a lot of themes that are weaved into that case, such as this desire to be notorious as a serial killer, a hero worship of serial killers, meticulously planning to be a notorious killer and using different techniques to ensure that the media were satiated with his gore. So people might say, well, why would you have a module on serial killing? One, it explains you look at murder, serial murder, and the operations of the criminal justice system, the operations of the mind, the brain, classic criminological theories of nature versus nurture, the neurocriminology, the way the brain works on a sort of medical basis compared to the structural theories such as socialization, the difference between a psychopath and a sociopath. People find it interesting, and people do well on the module, and people like reading about it. And when they read, they can present. Last year, the presentations I watched were phenomenal. People that spend a lot of time researching some of these murderers and going into the background, looking at the academic theories, applying the academic theories effectively to these cases. It was a very high standard. So hopefully you'll enjoy the module. And it's live on Blackboard now. I will be populating it with more lectures as time goes on. The first 3 lectures are on there, and there's some readings on there for you. There's quite a lot of reading. It's not, although it's the title of the module, Serial Killer, sounds sensational. You'll probably find it one of the most academic modules that you've done because of the advanced levels of theory, such as in relation to profiling, geographical profiling, the idea of the profiler, some of these, like I say, this neurocriminology and the medical reasons. So there's a lot of competing theories, and some of them are very, very advanced. Some of the academics that we're going to talk about are very highly regarded in their field. For example, Dr. Gwen Adshead, who's, I would say, Britain's leading forensic psychiatrist, who spent most of her time interviewing murderers and perpetrators of very, very violent crimes in Broadmoor, one of the secure prison hospitals. So some of her lectures, we're required to listen to and to reflect on some of the theories that she's got about perpetrators of violence. I'm very confident you're going to enjoy this module. Thank you.